Hello, we are back with another episode of the MHP podcast where we talk about anything and everything associated with this crazy little niche of real estate investing called mobile home parks, manufactured housing communities, or trailer parks. We talk about properties, due diligence, underwriting, issues, crazy things that happen, all that stuff. And I'm here with you today on another episode. So today we're going to dive in to ways to mitigate risk and maximize your returns in your mobile home park deal. Now, some of the stuff that I'll talk about here could dive into other long conversations about some of these things. But I'm just going to talk about the importance of really trying to mitigate your risk as much as possible, because I had a friend of mine that asked me the other day, like, Derek, how are you're able to do all this stuff? Like, you just so risk adverse. Like you don't mind taking risk. And sure, that's partially true. And I don't think it's funny because people think that entrepreneurs are these massive risk takers. And I would honestly argue the opposite of that, because most of the entrepreneurs that I know, they're very calculated, they're very analytical. They just understand the details of something a lot more than an outside onlooker. And to someone that's not an entrepreneur, it could look like, this person's not working a 9-to-5 job, so they're a risk taker. And that may be true depending on from what viewpoint you're looking at. But the point being is that entrepreneurs are not risk takers, in my opinion, for some of these reasons. And that's why we're going to talk about mitigating risk in your mobile home park investment here. And one of the first things I wanted to say here really quick is just wanted to thank you all for watching and listening here to the MHP Show. And please subscribe. Please leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts. Message me and let me know if there's anything you want me to discuss. I'd love to do that. We're going to start having some interviews mixed in here starting in the next month or so. So that'll be cool. And also what I have coming up is my 2-day masterclass where we are going to dive in to the foundations of your learning and your confidence on owning and operating mobile home parks. So if you're interested in that, go to parkinvestingpro.com. That's parkinvestingpro.com. So we are going to teach you how to underwrite with pinpoint accuracy in those 2 days. We're going to teach you all the terms that you need to know regarding this asset class and commercial real estate. Mobile home park terms, nomenclature, banking terms, all that stuff that when you look at a deal, sometimes you're like, well, I don't know what that is, especially if you're just starting out. So that we're going to underwrite deals live. I'm going to give you a step-by-step process and a way to track your activity and results as you go on your journey to purchase your first park. And so I'm going to get you set up with the basics that you need to take action. Look, the program's only $297. You get my deal evaluation spreadsheet with that, and you also get my due diligence list with that. And for $297, the due diligence list, I can't even put a number on that because it's probably, 300 items on that list that you'll have without making the stupid mistakes I did. That list only got 300 items because I made stupid mistakes. So just go to parkinvestingpro.com. If you have questions about that, reach out to me for sure. I think it'll be great. And we're going to have a lot of fun while we're doing that. We've already got people signed up for it. So it should be a good time. That's coming up. Oh, I think it's the last weekend in April or the first weekend in May. One of those, but I'll update that. And if you can't make it on Saturday and Sunday, you actually get the recording of that too. So all right, so let's move forward here into mitigating risk with your mobile home park. And I know this first one that I'm going to talk about, of course, Derek, everybody knows this, like due diligence. That's what it's there for, to help you mitigate risk. But how good are you doing due diligence? How tough are the questions that you're asking the seller? How thorough are you being in this due diligence process? I cannot stress this enough. And when I started out, I thought it was just enough to have a well guy come out and check the well. And it is, you should do that for sure, but you also need to understand those systems yourself to a degree to understand what can go wrong so you can understand what the big expenses are. If it has to be replaced completely, how much is that going to cost? Because then once you know that, you'll know the questions that you need to ask. Because you can have a well guy come out and they'll say, yeah, man, he's out there, he's got his toothpick in. You guys know what I'm talking about. Yeah, man, the well's fine. It's been running fine. Okay, great. Show me the reports. What are the flows? What is this permitted for? Is it permitted for, 5,000, 10,000 gallons a day, whatever it is? Are we in line with that? Has it ever tested for any chemicals or any biohazards or anything like that? Because you don't want that problem. That's a big problem. And just from studying and things, like, I thought you just get the well guy to come out and he's going to check everything that you need to check. Typically, these guys only charge a couple $100s to come out and take a look at your system. But if you don't know the proper questions to ask, like, you could get screwed. Like, so for example, and the reason why I'm bringing up the well, because I just thought of an instance that we had when we bought a property right outside of Orlando, had the well guy come. This was my second park that I bought. So, lots of mistakes. Had the well guy come out, the well guy that was already operating it. It's hard for me to think like, okay, whose side is this guy on? He's probably going to keep operating it anyways, but whatever. So he says, yeah, everything's fine. And maybe it was at that point, but you also have to think about how old these systems are and things like that. So come to find out, we had the water go out one night. All the tenants are pissed off. They're messaging in. Of course, they don't have water. I get it. So come to find out, and for this deal, we didn't capitalize it that well because everything was quote unquote fine. And we had to have U.S. Water come out and do an emergency well drill one night. They were working. I'm on the phone back and forth with them, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning until they get the freaking job done. They got it done. But, I was getting pictures from residents because you got to remember the second park here. I was managing this one myself. It was, it was right beside the first park that we bought. So I was managing this one myself, and now we had the 3 parks in Tampa at this time too. So I had hired someone to manage those, but I was managing this one myself. We just didn't have that much structure. And anyways, so I was getting pictures from the tenants, and U.S. Water's got freaking 6 trucks there and 15 freaking guys there. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, how much is this bill going to be? And so it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it was something to the effect of 40 grand, maybe a little bit more than that. I'd have to check. But look, it still sucks. And we were not fully leased at this time. We still had a few houses to sell. And so my point being there, me not having the knowledge, me not having the understanding of that system, I didn't fully understand that park. I didn't really dive into the nitty gritty with the well guy there. And so we had a $50,000 expense that we did not capitalize that park for. Now, luckily, we did have some capital in there. It was allocated for other things. We had sold some homes and sold them. People had paid for them outright up front. So we had some cash and we were able to make it work. We didn't have to do a capital call to any of our investors, or we didn't have to put any money in. So it was fine, but that particular park was teetering, the bank account was teetering on the brink of disaster for 3 or 4 months while we were still fighting through lease up. We had some evictions going on. We had tenants, spinning wheels and doing donuts in the back of the park. And so there was still a lot of chaos going on at this park. And boom, the well goes out and they hate Derek because the water freaking goes out and blah, 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 blah. So again, my point is, had I asked the proper questions and things, I may have been able to find out that, hey, you might have to replace this soon. And look, that's totally my fault, but I don't want you to make the same mistake. So there's a difference in doing due diligence and doing thorough due diligence. Okay. So asking those right questions and really getting into the nitty gritty on due diligence. And especially when you're looking at the infrastructure, I cannot stress this enough. The infrastructure will absolutely destroy you. It will it'll cut your head off. Like, the infrastructure is the guillotine in mobile home parks. Like, literally, like, it'll freaking whack you. And look, in the beginning, you may have to find some value add deals with some hair on them, with some well and septic and treatment plants and nasty stuff. And I'm telling you, like, be careful with that stuff because they will kill you in capital expenditure. So again, due diligence on the infrastructure. Oh my God, 100%. You're going to be able to mitigate a lot of risk. And then after you look at that, because look, 9 times out of 10, if you do thorough due diligence on the infrastructure, if it's private infrastructure, you're going to find something that you don't like. You're going to find something that you don't like. But what I suggest is that you make a list of those things and be like, hey, is this solvable in a reasonable manner? If you have a wastewater treatment plant and you get a statement of conditions report on it and they tell you have to expand the capacity of the plant, more than likely it's not possible. You can't add another pond to your park that's dense. Talking about Florida parks, maybe you're in another state where you got a lot of room, but that would be an example of a risk that cannot be fixed cheaply, at least. So make a list of those risks that you have with the infrastructure and see if they're relatively easily and inexpensive to solve. And then also you want to get a quote on those things. So, hey, if you know the well is going to go out, you're going to raise or bring in an extra $15,000 or $50,000 to do that when it does go out. Okay. And so the other thing in reviewing the financials. Now, look, I know you get them from mom and pop and they're on loose leaf paper. They're on that old, you guys know that green paper with the boxes on it that you see. I don't know what that's called, but some of you maybe know what I'm talking about. It's like graphing paper or something. They got the financials written on that. And so look, I know that it's not going to be great. And and to some degree, it doesn't matter in some of these parks. I get that to a degree. But if you're buying a park that has all tenant-owned homes and the owner's claiming to get all this rent in on a monthly basis, you want to see that and look and ask questions. Dive into the financials. Make him feel uncomfortable. Make him or her feel uncomfortable with asking those questions. Why is this? Why is this that? Because you want to understand that. Bank statements, tax returns, pretty useless because he's thrown in his dinners out, his truck, and his four-wheeler and everything else is in his tax return. So those are almost useless. But bank statements and things, you just want to see that the income is coming in. A little bit less important than the first one, but it's still super, 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 super important. Okay. And then also another thing here, moving on, is that checking and understanding the market that you're in. And how would you do that? Well, there's a little place called bestplaces.net. I've got it up right here because I was looking at a deal. So bestplaces.net, you can literally find anything and everything that you want to know about a particular market. So if you type in the market, it'll bring up, it'll give you info about the real estate. The cost of living there is one thing that I look at. I go and look at cost of living and I go down and look at what the average rent is in that particular market. Because it's going to, obviously, it varies by market, but it's going to give you an idea of where you are, the upside that's there. Because I'm telling you, if you're in a market that all these parks have been owned by mom and pop for a long time, no one's at the real market. Okay. So this will let you gauge some of what that is. So that's important. You can look at the jobs that are in that area, what the crime rate is. Politics and voting, who voted for what, right? Because that matters. Totally matters. And look, I hate politics. The politicians, they're like, ugh. But there's whether you're in an area that's blue or red, there are different things that you have to deal with. We are in some particular markets that are blue that are a pain for various reasons. There's just a little bit more bureaucracy there. And it's fine. We'll deal with it. And it's not a deal killer, but just, you just got to make sure that you look at that stuff. Understanding what the economy is, what the schools are like, what's the ratings of the schools in that area. But the main thing that I look at as is the rent and the median home cost of that particular area, because that's going to tell you. I was looking at a market earlier that I got sent a deal. The median home price was $64,000. So what does that mean? Well, if you have your mobile home park's lot rents are going to be like 150, 200 bucks. And that may be fine. The deal still may work, but how much growth are you going to get there? You're not going to get that much in a market where someone can go buy a house for $64,000. What would the mortgage be on that? Let's see. Yeah. So I think I've got this right. Yeah. So at 7% interest, a house at $64,000 is $350 a month. Now, look, there's a mobile home park in this area, and yeah, people live there. So maybe people prefer to live in the community versus having a home payment for $350,000 or $350. But your rent is probably never going to get to $500, maybe in 20 years. So it's very, very, very important to just understand that. And I'm not saying you can't buy in a rural area. I'm not saying you can't buy in a place that has median home prices at $64,000. You 100% can, because people do, but you just want to know that. And that's going to give you some insight on whether the deal is good or whatnot. So look, understanding the market, and look, I'll do more episodes on understanding the market and diving into that a little more, but this is just the gist of overview. And if you have questions, you can reach out. And so another way that you can mitigate risk after you've done all that stuff, the things that I mentioned before, and you've purchased the property, quality, experienced, effective property management and day-to-day operations that can mitigate risk. And what do I mean about that being able to mitigate risk? Well, if you have a shitty property manager and they're not there, they're not doing the things that they need to do, they're not fixing the clogs, what this can lead to, the property manager who pisses someone off, doesn't answer the phone, is not there, you're going to end up with a mad tenant that basically, I think I mentioned this before in that second park that we talked about in the beginning. The old property manager pissed off one of the residents, so he started jamming toilet paper, tissues, paper towels, toys down his clean out and clogged up the drain field to the septic tank. And it ended up, there was basically, we got a health department violation because there was sewage on the ground, and it ended up screwing up this drain field where we had to replace it. That's $15,000. Now, a good property manager, and look, this guy may have just been an ass. It's definitely possible, and he kind of was. But a good property manager probably would have been able to prevent that to a certain degree. And a property manager that's present knows what is going on in the property and where the issues are. Now, if you have a property manager that they don't ask questions to the contractors, they don't see ahead, they're looking at just a quick fix now. Hey, let's fix all the broken pipes and the clogged up. Let's keep jetting the sewer lines, the same sewer line that clogs up, 5 times a month, instead of, hey guys, let's take a look at this and pay $3,000 to fix it for good. We actually had this happen. We had a crappy property manager who literally, maybe he was making a little money off of this, and he probably was, but hey, let's just keep jetting the lines. 500, 500, 500, 500. Oh, new property, fired him. New property manager comes in. She sends me basically, hey, Derek, this is the quote I got, $3,000 to fix this particular sewer line that kept clogging up, kept clogging up, kept clogging up. And we fixed it. I'm like, boom, it's done. It's done. So having property management that actually can, obviously, if they're stealing from you, that's a whole different deal. But having that to where they actually care and they're worried about the day-to-day operations in the park, they're looking to make the experience of the tenants better instead of just, hey, keep jetting out the line. Oh, hey, ring, ring, ring. Office gets more calls. That poop is clogging back up in their house and just creates more traffic at the office, more traffic for our office that answers the phone, more traffic for the management, and then the tenant gets pissed off, tells the other neighbor, and then they go around, oh, they're not doing their job, and then everybody's unhappy. All right. So it starts on the ground with property management. I'm telling you, just make sure that you're doing proper due diligence on hiring people as your property manager, because a crappy property manager can actually cause more problems than they do solve them. If you have a bad one, you just as well have nobody there, because they're going to cost you more money and all kinds of stuff and headaches and things like that. So that is huge. In also mitigating risk with your property management, in that they have to be good. So when someone comes by, code enforcement, health department, whatever it is in your state, they have to be communicative with these people and they have to talk to them. Because if you piss the code enforcement guy off and don't fix the mess that Susie's got in her yard, she's got all kinds of stuff out there, who Lord knows what. If you don't get that stuff handled and the property manager's not on it, they're going to come back and they're going to wreak havoc in your mobile home park. If you pissed off a code enforcement person, they can literally come in at any day and time. And you owners know what I'm talking about. And they could write up 50,000 violations if they wanted to. So that's another reason why you need to have proper and professional property management. All right. So moving on to the last thing here, one other way to mitigate your risk, and this kind of go along with the due diligence strategy, is understanding the local regulations, zoning, permitting, all the regulatory risk and all that. And I talked about that earlier, is that if you have to modify the infrastructure in one way, shape, or form, can you actually do that? Can it even be permitted to do that? Right. And also too is you all know, people like to build onto their houses and they like to do it on Saturday and Sunday. And then you come into the park on Monday and they've got a whole new 15 by 15 addition built on the side of the unit. And the property manager, knowing that and knowing that they can't actually do that, will help, because as soon as the code enforcement comes in and sees that, they're going to write you up and it's going to be a disaster for you. The people may even lose their home. They may have to tear down their home. So it's important to understand that, the permitting requirements, all that stuff that someone would need to do that, and you can help your property manager put those systems and processes in place. But if they're a crappy property manager, you're probably not going to know about it anyways. Yeah. And so look, I know there's many, many, many other ways to mitigate risk with your mobile home park, but those are just a few that I came up with and I wanted to share with you today. And so before I go, please, please, please don't forget to reach out. I'd love to chat with you. I'd love to meet with you. Love to do a Zoom call with you, learn what you're doing. If you have any questions about investing in mobile home parks, would love to help you. You can look on my social media. I'm on every social media platform at Derek Vickers 885. And I'm posting videos in the parks and little tips and tricks. So I'd love to help you. And also, I mentioned before, if you go to parkinvestingpro.com, it's parkinvestingpro.com. That's parkinvestingpro.com. There's a 2-day masterclass you're not going to want to miss. It's going to be a ton of fun and well worth your while. And so thank you again for listening to another episode of the MHP Show. I will see you next time, and peace out.